Janet. How's it going? You're talking to Eric.
Janet!
Hey.
Hey.
Are my two favorite heathens.
Yeah.
Marvelous and flattered.
We're actually doing really good. We've got a live studio audience. We haven't even...
Acknowledged yet.
Yeah. Hey,
Hi, guys.
Oh, yeah,
We can
yeah.
still see you.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, we actually filmed this live out of the Free Thought Library in Austin, Texas. What's the address here?
1507 West Koenig Lane.
If anybody...
Austin, Texas, 78749.
Wow, that was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if anybody who's watching ever is in the Austin area and wants to catch a show, we'd love to see you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I would
sorry,
love
Janet,
to,
that was super off topic, but I just wanted to kind of throw that in there while I remembered.
and I would
no,
love to
fine.
try and show you around Austin. Also, sorry for talking over you just then, Janet.
Okay, Jamie, we're used to it.
Ouch.
I had to get mine in there too.
Burn! So,
It's okay.
Love you, Jamie.
Yeah.
So I was actually going to kind of continue, since the show's about continuing conversations, a little bit about the indoctrination topics that we've had before. But one of the things I haven't, really revealed about my past was that when I was a teenager, we moved into a house where really weird things happened. And, being that I was pretty much always skeptic, I just dismissed them as things that, just part of the house being old and then, those kinds of things just happened. But my sisters and mothers were convinced that the house was haunted and that there were these spirits in it. And they kept trying to convince me that, these things were, being done, that they weren't just coincidence or weren't just bad wiring or a drafty house or whatever. So my sister did what any, good Christian shouldn't do and go buy a Ouija board. And my mother
did?
had a cow.
A Ouija board?
She did. She went and bought she went to Toys R Us.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was about $8, I think, and bought the Ouija board. And she came home very secretive, because Mom couldn't know that she had this, that she could talk to the spirits. And, and I was like, I was curious. I said, well, let's drag it out and see what happens. And it was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So my sisters are all totally, buying into it. And I'm sitting there going, you realize that this is all, BS, right? And they didn't. They totally bought into it. And then eventually they told my mom a couple of days ago, later that they had done this. And she was like, oh, we must destroy it. We had to, they actually had a burning ceremony where they burned it, which then, they found out later that wasn't what you're supposed to do. And that was a whole other thing. But apparently you're supposed to bury it for anyone out there who's unaware of what you're supposed to do to rid the, demons, that you're supposed to bury it.
Wow.
Anyway, so in this house, lamps would turn off and on, the phone would ring, but there'd be nobody there. You'd hear knocking on doors, things like that. But, all of those things, even if they weren't easily explained, doesn't mean therefore God, or therefore it's spirits or supernatural. And so I would tell them, I'm like, it's an old house, the lamps going off and on, bad wiring. The, phone ringing, it was a weird ring. Again, it was bad wiring. And the knocking, quote unquote, was most likely drafts, because it was a drafty house. But my mother kind of got somewhat fanatical with it, and she ended up seeking advice from our pastor, who decided that they needed to bless the house, which of course, carries a fee.
Of course.
And so it all as ridiculous as it sounds, it was 3 years of my life where every bump or, noise in the house for those 3 years was attributed to spirits. And anytime I tried to tell them that it wasn't spirits, and by the way, they don't like to be called ghosts, apparently, because, according to my mother.
You don't want to offend the ghost.
I mean, that's
you couldn't
a
offend the ghost,
slur against
right. I was told that it was a demon.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yes, yeah. I was being told that it was a demon that was telling me to say these things. And that, I was being influenced by these powers in the house. And I guess that's just more of the damage that was done by indoctrination I wanted to talk about, because I wanted to convey that this isn't something that you just see in movies, that there are people who really believe these things, and they force them upon their kids. And I can honestly say that I was damaged by it, because I still to this day will hear, in in my mind, at the time. So when I was told that, I was being influenced. But more so, I wanted to say that, it damaged my sisters because they still believe it. And one of the things that was, I guess, being a teenager and being quite the rebel, I finally said, since I can't beat them, I'll join them. And I started making up things to go along with the narrative.
Sinner.
And, so
Jesus, sinner.
like, okay, they're saying there's a spirit named, Joseph, then I'll make up a story behind him and say that I discerned it. Mm-hmm. And they really thought that I could do that. And they totally bought into it. Mm-hmm. And, I feel bad about it now, but at the time I was like, well, this is just ridiculous. So if they're going to believe me, whatever, and I just did it. But I kind of feel bad because now my sisters still believe it. And like even last week, my sister contacted me. She texted me and said, there's a shadowy figure in my house. What do you think it is? And I'm like, turn on the lights and it'll go away.
Yeah.
A shadow?
And she's like, no, seriously. I see it all the time. I'm like, it's a shadow. So I'm no longer trying to, fool them like I did back in the day. Yeah. But I think I kind of blame myself because I shouldn't have given into it back then to further their beliefs that these things were real. So now what do I do to fix the damage I did?
So you're blaming yourself for something that you don't have.
I tend to do that a lot.
Yeah, don't put that on yourself because the fact is that was not an isolated thing. You, just like so many people, grew up in a culture where people actually think they have superpowers. That's amazing. Who doesn't want to have superpowers? You're not to blame for somebody not being rational. The best that you can do is move forward. You were a kid. Don't lose a single wink of sleep on that, because that's just owning something that's not yours. Let that go. Really.
Do you think I should tell her though that that was all BS from before?
Yes.
You can tell her that. Yeah.
Tell my sister that?
I would say there's actually. You know what? I may try and find the clip. I think it's on Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, where they did a history of the spiritualist movement that started in the 1800s. Because it started primarily with these two sisters and the way they did it is they could pop the knuckles of their feet. So they would say like, oh, if there's a ghost here, give us a signal that you're here. And then one of them would pop the knuckles of their toes. Mm-hmm. And it must be a ghost, right?
Yeah, I kind of did a similar kind of trick, to be quite honest, because I knew that if I stepped on this one certain board that the light would flicker. So I kind of did that, but it was just because, after years of it, I just kind of was over it, and they weren't listening, so I was like, okay, fine. So yeah. I knew about the kind of parlor tricks.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
It is.
Magicians are pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I was not that good at it. Like, I think I could only fool my sisters and my mother. I don't think I would be convincing to anyone, literally anyone else. But,
well, no, I mean, like...
to them, they bought it.
Well, you can actually say a whole... so what's funny is Jamie and I were actually talking this morning about if we were to toss our morals and ethics completely out the window, how we could...
How much of this conversation are we going to repeat on the air?
Would you like to, just in case I say something I'm not supposed to?
No, you're fine.
Yeah, we could theoretically, we could theoretically turn around and be like, oh, hey, now we understand Jesus, and we could get talking gigs and probably do pretty well for ourselves as far as careers are concerned.
Oh, of course, yeah.
There's
I told him
lot more money in churches than there are.
We would have to marry devout women, probably, relatively.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing.
Ex-gay,
is that
give me your money.
That's
I was watching, actually, this morning before the call. Is probably one of the reasons why I called. Was I was watching The Honest Lie with James Randi, The Amazing Randy, and I was watching that, and that's basically what they were talking about. It was like, if you lose your moral and ethics, would you charge for these things? And that's what he took offense to, and it was. you know, I never did anything like that to try to, like, in fact, it upset me when the preacher charged to come bless our house, quote unquote, because that bothered me, because he was taking advantage of my mother. I mean, and I recognized that even back then, you know, even as a child who wasn't even admitting to myself that I was an atheist yet. But I took great offense to that. I'm like, you know, this is such bull, and he's taking my mom's money.
Yeah. There's a show that was on Hulu a while back. I'm not sure how many seasons it had, called something crap. It had a name.
Crap, writing it now.
It's called Something Crap, and it's about this person who is a con artist, effectively, and they sell BS stuff left, right, and center. And they, they bump into, like, these gypsies, like, you know, and there's a, you know, interact with gypsy culture, and some of those people are also con artists or whatever. I know that they're Roma. In the show, they call themselves gypsies. Shouldn't use their term. Whatever. Sorry, I was reading into Eric's staring me down. Whatever.
No, I'm actually overheating in this, and I'm considering in my mind the implications of taking this off and exposing the green shirt and the punishment.
Eric, I do want to say that from a viewer's point, you very reminiscent of Edward in Twilight. Yours very sparkly.
Is that a good thing or bad?
I'm just going to throw it out there that you're very sparkly, and that's not a bad thing. The books, you know, and movies, not so much, but Eric looks nice, very sparkly. I mean, it could almost be a green disco ball. It's really nice.
So sparkly, shiny.
Thank you for that. I'm just going
have a little mini rave right there.
I'm just going to just.
Does that mean the rest of the show is mine?
Yes. Okay. But I actually do. Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. What else you got?
No, I appreciate your words there. I really do appreciate it, because I carry some guilt from that time. So, and my mom's gone, so it's not like I can clear things up with her.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
If it helps at all before you leave, it's a different situation, but I feel a whole lot of guilt for a disproportionate amount of guilt, I know, but I still feel it just for failing to do stuff with people that are close to me, failing to reach out and help them. And now there are people that I know that now believe some things that I wouldn't have thought
I have
possible.
No idea what you're talking about.
So there's a person that's close to me that now doesn't believe that evolution occurred, or that, like, historical figures, their entire motivation, if they're good, is God. And it has no relation to anything else. Like, people that improved society, like Gandhi, was very clearly led by Jesus, even though he didn't know it. Like, and it had nothing to do with India. No, nothing to do with the injustice. It was just Jesus. And I've tried to be like, what do you even mean? Like, he did things in India. Clearly it's related to India. No, just Jesus. Like, it's to the point where they're not making sense, and that kind of thinking is showing in other things that they think. That kind of thinking is showing in the way that they come to conclusions about politics as well. It's really, really frightening. Yeah. That's
welcome to my family. That's my entire family. They give credit for anything good, no matter if you did it as an atheist or not, to God. And they say, well, God's working through you, whether you accept him or not. And I'm like, oh, no.
Is God working through my hand when I raise this finger? Like,
right. Exactly. Yeah. But so I realize what you're talking about there, and it's sad when it's sad when people can't take the credit for themselves for the good work that they do.
It's the mental equivalent of watching someone's physical condition slowly deteriorate when they have a terminal illness.
Yeah. Well, Janet,
I assume. Sorry, that's insensitive to people.
I think we're going to move on to the next call, but thank you so much for calling in. We really
Thank you.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
of
You're
course.
amazing. We love you.
You are too. And speak to you both later. Love,
You're
guys.
more than
Bye.
amazing. You're Janet.